Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall I begin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, a very good morning to all my dear students. Today I am Mrs. Samina Kazi from Nehru Nagar MPS Secondary School. Will be teaching you the concept of evolution from the chapter number 1, that is hereditary and evolution, from science part 2nd. Okay, so let's begin with our chapter number 1, that is hereditary and evolution. So firstly, what is evolution? Evolution is the gradual change occurring in the living organisms over a long duration. Okay, what is evolution? It is a gradual change which occurs in the living organisms, and it takes a long period of time. Okay, so evolution, it is a gradual change. Okay, gradual means it is not all of suddenly. It requires a lot of time. Okay, it takes a lot of time to get evolved. Okay, and it occurs in the living organisms. This is a very slow going process through which the development of the organisms is being achieved. Okay, it requires a time, so it is said to be a slow going process, and in this there is the development of the organisms which can be achieved over a long period of time. So if we define evolution, what is the definition of evolution? The formation of new species due to the changes in specific characters of several generations of living organisms as a response to natural selection is called as evolution. Okay, what is the definition of evolution? It is the formation of new species which occurs. Okay, why it occurs? It occurs due to the changes which are being responsible for the several generations of living organisms in response to the natural selection. This process, it is called as evolution. So you can see that on the earth there exists a variety of creatures, okay, from unicellular animals to multicellular giant animals, okay. In the same way, there are different varieties of plants which exist on the earth. So these are being evolved, okay. So how these stars and planets were formed? Yes, there might be a question that how these stars and planets were formed. So for that, a theory was being explained by the great scientist George Lemaitre. That theory is called as the Big Bang theory. Now what is this Big Bang theory? The Big Bang theory is the leading explanation about how the universe began. It, at its simplest, it says that the universe as we know it started with an infinitely hot, infinitely dense singularity, then inflated first at unimaginable speed and then at a more measurable rate. Okay, if you study this Big Bang theory, you will come to know that it started that at the universe, if you see, if you know this universe, it was being started with an infinitely hot and infinitely dense singularity, and then it got inflated and at an unimaginable speed, and there was some more measurable rate. Okay, according to this theory, approximately 13.7 billion years ago, the universe started at just a single point. This single point exploded and all the material present inside it was thrown in the space. Okay, what did you understood? That according to this theory, 13.7 billion years ago, everything we know of was an infinitely small singularity a point of infinite denseness and infinite heat. Then explosive expansion began, ballooning over universe outwards faster than the speed of light. This was a period of cosmic inflation that lasted just for a fraction of seconds. And whatever the material was being present in that single point, it got exploded, and whatever was being present, it was being thrown in the space. When the cosmic inflation came to end, then there began the process of populating our universe with particles, atoms, stars, galaxies, and so on. And in this way, there was the formation of stars and planets. Okay, so this formation of stars and planets, it didn't happen all of sudden. It took a lot of time. Okay, it was a gradual change which occurred, okay, by a big explosion, and whatever the material, the atoms, stars, galaxies, and the things which we can see around us, they came into existence after this explosion. Okay, and in this way we can say that there was the formation of stars and planets. Now if you look into the history, you will see that many philosophers and religious scholars have written their views about formation of life. There seems to be a thorough discussion over the formation of universe in various cultures like Indian, Chinese, Roman, Greek, etc. Okay, if you read the scholars, the philosophers of different and the religious scholars, they have mentioned about this existence in the formation of universe in their religious book. Okay, either in the Indian, in the Chinese, in the Roman, in the Greek, you can find this great scholars, they have mentioned their views about the formation of life in their books. Then various cultures have noted different type of information about planets, stars, the Pancha Mahabhuta, living organisms, etc. in the form of poetry, stories, and in the sacred books. Okay, in the various cultures, this information about the planets and stars, as well as about the Pancha Mahabhuta, the living organisms, etc. This all information is being written in different cultures, either in the form of poetry, in the form of stories, or in their sacred books. About 3.5 billion years ago, life did not exist on the earth. Okay, this you all should know that if you go back 3.5 billion years ago, there was no life existing on the earth. Then at the beginning, there may have been only simple elements in the ocean on the earth, and simple type of organic and inorganic compounds may have been formed from those. Okay, if you see that 3.5 billion years ago, there was no life on the earth. So where did the life began? The life first which existed was in the ocean. Okay, it was been it was been only of simple elements. Okay, these simple elements were either organic or inorganic compounds. Okay, they have been formed from those. See here the simple elements like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, sulfur. Okay, these were the simple elements which combine together to form the complex one. Here you can see the simple organic compounds like methane, formaldehyde, urea. Okay. In the same way, simple inorganic compounds like carbon dioxide, water, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. Whereas Complex compounds like the proteins and nucleic acids may have formed over the long period from those of the simple compounds. Okay. Initially, there was only the simple elements which were being existing, okay, which came into existence. Then after, there was the mixture of organic and inorganic compounds, and there was the formation of complex compounds, okay, like the nucleic acids and the proteins. Then the first primitive type of cells may have been formed from the mixture of different types of organic and inorganic compounds. Okay, the different the cells which came into existence, they might have been formed from the mixture of different types of organic and inorganic compounds. Here you can see there are different simple organic compounds like the methane, formaldehyde and urea. In the same way, inorganic compounds like the carbon dioxide, water, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. These all organic and inorganic compounds, they have formed a mixture, and there was the formation of a first primitive cell. Number of those cells may have increased at the cost of surrounding chemicals. Okay, depending upon the surrounding chemicals, the number of cells may have been increased. There may had been some differences among those cells, and according to the principle of natural selection, some may have shown good growth and some may have perished, which could not adjust with surrounding. Okay, depending upon the changes which have been occurring in the surrounding, those creatures who have adopted those changes, they have shown a good growth, whereas some of them who were unable to adopt with the changes occurring in the surrounding, they may have perished and they could not adjust with the surrounding. So dinosaurs, they were being existing a long years ago, okay, but as there were no changes which were being adopted as per the changes in the surrounding, they could not exist anymore. At present, crores of species of plants and animals with huge diversity regarding shape and complexity are present on the earth. Okay, on earth, if you see at present, there are a varieties of plants and animals which exist on the earth, and they have a different shape and different surrounding where they survive. Okay, animal diversity consists of various species ranging from unicellular amoeba and paramecium to man and giant whale. Similarly, the plants diversity consists of various species ranging from unicellular cholera to huge banyan tree. Okay, if you see on the earth, there are a varieties of plants and a varieties of animals. If we take a simple example of a unicellular animal like amoeba and paramecium, which are made up of only one cell, in the same way there are the multicellular animals like we all are multicellular animals like the human beings and the giant whale. We all exist on this earth. In the same way, in case of plants, the unicellular plant like chlorella to the multicellular plant like the giant banyan tree. These all things we can see on the earth. Okay, these are the different varieties of plants and animals which exist on the earth. The life exists on earth everywhere from equator to both the poles. Okay, life is being present everywhere on the earth from equator to both the poles. Organisms are present at all the places like air, water, land, rock, etc. Okay, we can see the living organisms, they are being present everywhere, either in the water, in the air, land, rocks, everywhere you can see a variety of living organisms. Humans have shown curiosity about origin of life and reasons for such great diversity in life present on the earth since ancient period. Okay, what human beings, they have shown a great curiosity about the origin of life, how the great diversity, of the life exist on the earth. Okay, so there was a great curiosity in the human beings to study about the origin of life and how the diversity of life came into existence on the earth. So for that purpose, different theories about origin and evolution of life have been proposed till today, of which theory of gradual development of living organisms is being accepted. Okay, in order to learn whatever the changes occurring in the what had been happened about the existence of life on the earth, to study all these things, whatever the great diversity which we see in the life present on the earth. So for knowing these all things, many theories came into existence which explain us about the origin and the evolution of life. And out of these different theories, the gradual development of living organism, it is being accepted. So let's study the theory of evolution. According to this theory, first living material, that is protoplasm, has been formed in the ocean. Okay, as I told you before also, that the first life which existed, it was being formed in the ocean. Okay, the theory of evolution says us that the first living material, which is that is protoplasm. Protoplasm was the first living material which was being formed in the ocean. In due course of time, unicellular organisms were then formed. Okay, once the at the beginning, the very first one, that was the protoplasm which was formed in the ocean, and then after, as the time passed, there was the formation of unicellular organism, means those organisms which were being made up of only one cell. Then gradually the changes occurred in the unicellular organisms, from which there were the formation of larger and complex organisms. Okay, as the time passed, there were the gradual changes which occurred in the unicellular organism, and slowly gradually there were the formation of larger and more complex organisms. All those changes were slow and gradual. See, the things doesn't happen all of suddenly. They require a lot of time. Okay. So these changes which occurred, they were gradual and very slow. Duration of all these changes is at most 300 crore years. Changes and development in living organisms had been all round and multidimensional, and this led to the evolution of different type of organisms. Okay, as these changes and development which occurred in the living organisms, it had been all round and it had been multidimensional, and because of which there was a reason of evolution of different organisms. This overall process, it is called as evolution, which is organizational. Okay, this overall process, the thoroughly development, the all-round development and multidimensional changes which occurred in the living organism, this all process is, it leads to the evolution. Okay, so the progressive development of plants and animals from the ancestors having different structural and functional organization, it is called as evolution. Okay, according to the theory of evolution, how we can define evolution? Evolution is the progressive development of plants and animals from the ancestors having different structural and functional organization. It is called as evolution. Okay, I hope you understood what is evolution. Now, on collective thinking upon all the above mentioned theories implies that evolution is everlasting process of changes. However, it needs proof to prove it, right? So, are there such any evidences? Yes, this all part what we learned up till now, that this all were the theories which says us that the evolution is a slow process which requires time. The changes which occurs, they are being gradual and slow. So this all leads to evolution. But are there any evidences of such evolution? So the answer to your question is yes, there are certain evidences of evolution. So which are those? Let's see. The first evidence, that is called as morphological evidences. Now, what are morphological evidences? You can see the picture. Here you can see the various similarities like structure of mouth, position of eyes, structure of nostrils and ear pinning, and thickly distributed hairs on the body are seen in the animals, whereas the similarities in characters like the leaf shape, leaf venation, leaf petiole, etc. occurs in the case of plants. Okay, here you can see the position of eyes and the structure of mouth. Doesn't it look similar? Yes, it shows certain similarity, right? Here you can see there are certain similarities in the characteristics. Which characteristics? Like the structure of mouth, the position of eyes, structure of nostrils, structure of ear pinning, then thickly distributed hairs on the body, right? So they are showing certain similarities, okay? In the same way, in case of plants, you can see there are certain similarities in the leaf shape, okay, the shape of the leaf. In the same way, the leaf venation, okay, the venation type in the leaf, you can see it is similar. Here you can see in the picture, it is indicated by red lines, okay, which explains is about the leaf venation and leaf petiole, okay, the point which is being attached, that red color it is shown, okay, that is leaf petiole. So here you can see there is a lot of similarity in the characteristics of plants as well, like the leaf shape, leaf venation and leaf petiole. So what does it indicates? This indicates that there are some similarities in those groups, and hence it proves that their origin must be same and must have common ancestors. Okay, whatever the similarities just now we have seen in case of animals, like the structure of mouth, the position of eyes, structure of nostrils and ear pinning, and thickly distributed hairs on the body. These characteristics are showing certain similarities in the animals. In the same way, there are certain similarities in characteristics of plants as well, like the leaf petiole, leaf shape, leaf venation, and from this we come to know that there must be some relation, there must be some common ancestors. They must have been come from a common ancestors. Okay, those similarities in those groups is the proof that their origin must be same, and some they must have common ancestors. Okay, so this is our first evidence, that is the morphological evidence. Then the second evidence, that is the anatomical evidences. Now here, if you carefully observe the picture, there doesn't seem any superficial similarity between the human hand, foreleg of the ox, flipper of the well, and patagium of bat. Okay, here you can see there is the four pictures of human hand, cat's foreleg, flipper of well, and patagium of bat. So there doesn't exist any superficial similarity, right? So in the same way, you can see that use of each of those structure is different in respective animals, right? In the human beings, the hand is used for for many works, right? In the same way, the flipper of well is being required. The in case of cats, the four legs are being needed. In the case of bat, the patagium is being needed. Okay, so there is similarity in the structure of the bones and the body joints in the organs of each of these animals. Okay, there is certain similarity in the structure of bones and the body joints in the organs of each of these animals. So this similarity indicates that these animals may have a common ancestor. Okay, if you carefully study these all pictures properly, you will come to know that there is the similarity, and it indicates that these animals, they have common ancestors. Okay, so this is the second evidence, that is the anatomical evidence. Then, can you name the different organs in the body of organism? Yes, you know there are different organs present in the human body, right? Like the brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidney, large intestine, small intestine. Many organs are there in the human body. So, do you think all of these organs are being useful in the human body? Yes. Is each of the organs present in the body is useful? It is not necessary that each organ present in the body of an organism is useful to that organism. Okay, it's not being necessary. In a human body, there are many organs which are not useful to it. Yes, do you know this? Yes, there are many organs which are present in the human body. But out of these different organs, there are certain organs present in the human body which are not being useful. So, example is the wisdom teeth and appendix. A simple example, that is the wisdom teeth and the appendix. So if these body parts are not useful to the human body, then why they are being present in the body? Yes, there may be a question in your mind. Yes or no? That the wisdom teeth, appendix, if these organs, they are not being useful in the human body, then why do they exist? Why they are being present in the body? So the answer to your question is, these organs, these are called as the vestigial organs. What these organs are called? These are called as the vestigial organs. Now, what do you mean by vestigial organs? The degenerated or underdeveloped useless organs of organisms are called as vestigial organs. Okay, what do you mean by vestigial organs? These are degenerated, or these are underdeveloped, which are not being developed properly. These organs, they are being useless and they are being present in the organism, and such organs are called as the vestigial organs. Is that clear everyone? What is vestigial organs? Vestigial organs are the degenerated or underdeveloped useless organs of the organisms. Then in living organisms, sudden development of new tissues or organs for living in changing environment is not possible. Instead, existing organs undergo gradual changes. Mostly, a specific structure in the body is useful under certain situations. However, same structure under different situations may become useless or even harmful. Such structure begins to degenerate under such situation as per the principle of natural selection. Okay, here you can see that in the living organisms there are certain development of new tissues or organs. Why this there is the development of tissues and organs? So as to adopt the changes occurring in the environment. And if these organs, if they are not undergoing these changes, then there is the they start becoming degenerate. Okay, this structure they begins to degenerate if they do not undergo the changing situation as per the principle of natural selection. And this process, it takes thousands of years for a structure to disappear. Okay, this disappearance, it does not appears all of suddenly, but it requires thousands of years to disappear. Okay, such organs are seen in different phases of disappearance in different animals. Such organ, though non-functional in certain organisms, it may be functional in other organisms. That is, it is not vestigial in other organs. Okay, if you see that as we are saying that the vestigial organs, these are the degenerated or these are the underdeveloped useless organs, right? But it is not necessary that if they are being non-functional in certain organisms, but they can be more effectively functioning in other organisms. Just like a simple example here, in the human body, appendix is considered to be as a useless organ. Okay, but in case of ruminants, you can see that it is being very useful and it is fully functional organ. Okay, so this explains us that the vestigial organs in some of the organisms may be useless, but in some of the other organisms it may be quite useful and it may be fully functional. One more example, like the muscles of the ear pinna. Here in the human being, the muscles of the ear pinna, they are being considered to be as a useless organ. But in the monkeys, this ear pinna is being very useful and it is fully functional organ. Okay, so it is not necessary that the vestigial organ which is useless in one organism, it may be proving useful in some other organism. Like this, one more example, like the tailbone, which is called as coccyx, then wisdom teeth and body hairs which are present in the human body. These are considered it to be as the vestigial organs. Okay, so one more thing, that is nictitating membrane. Nictitating membrane, it is present in the human being. Okay, and it is useless and it is not functional. Okay, it is a non-functional organ in case of human being. But this nictitating membrane, it is being useful and it is fully developed organ in case of birds. Okay, so this says us that the vestigial organs may be useless in some of the organisms, but it can be useful in many others. Okay. Likewise, in case of birds, in some of the birds, you can see that the wings, they are being underdeveloped. They are not being so developed. Okay. While in some of the other birds, you can see that the wings are well developed, or we can say they are fully developed, and because of which they can fly high in the sky. Okay. So this is underdeveloped, or we can say that useless organs of the organism. So I hope that you all have understood our today's point. Okay. Once a quick recap of all the points, what we have learned today. Firstly, we have seen what is evolution. Okay. How the evolution occurred. What is the definition of evolution? Then we have learned about the Big Bang theory. Okay. Then we have seen that the existence of life, it is being mentioned in many of the religious books, okay, by great philosophers and religious scholars. They have mentioned about the formation of life on the earth in their books, okay, either in the form of poetry, in the form of stories, in their sacred books, okay. Then we have seen that the first life which existed on the earth, it is 3.5 billion years ago. Okay, and the very first uh, a very first organism which was being formed, it was made up of simple elements. Okay, and then there were the different organic and inorganic compounds which came together to form the different organisms. Then you have seen that complex compounds, they were being formed from the simple compounds. Then also we have seen how the first living creature, that is the unicellular organism like the paramecium or the amoeba, it came into existence. Just we will go back and we will see. Okay, so what we have seen that
Hello.
hello,
Hello, good
Hello.
morning. It's
Hello.
hi top everyone. Do not, do you want to ask anything, Neeraj? Okay, Aditya, you are raising your hand.
Hello, good morning, ma'am.
Yes, good morning.
I'm Diksha from Dharavi Transit Camp English Municipal School.
Yes,
And first question's answer is selection of evolution.
yes, selection is called as evolution. Very good. Yes, Diksha, very good.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Neeraj.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you, Neeraj. You can give the answer.
Ma'am, what is meant by morological evidence?
morphological evidences are showing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, just mute yourself so that I can speak. Just turn your mic off.
Okay,
Neeraj.
ma'am.
Okay, now listen to me. What is morphological evidence? We have seen just now that in certain plants and in certain animals, we come to know that there is the similarity in the structure of their mouth, in the position of their eyes, in the structure of their nostrils and ear pinna and thickly distributed hairs on the body. In the same way, in case of plants, we have seen that there is similarity in their leaf shape, in the leaf venation and the leaf petiole. And from this, we come to know that they all exist from a common origin, or they have common ancestors. So this is called as the morphological evidence. Understood, Neeraj? Yes, Neeraj. Did you
Hi.
understand?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am. Hello,
Yes. Yes, yes, I can.
ma'am.
Yes, Neeraj.
No, ma'am.
Time is up. You can say faster. Hello.
The answer of the second question is George Lemaitre.
Yes, very good. I'm sorry, Shais. Very good.
Hello, ma'am.
Where was? Yes.
Ma'am, in ocean, the first living organism protoplasm has been formed.
Very good.
Ma'am,
Very
I am
good, Sanu.
Sanu Mishra from Goregaon MPS Secondary School.
Yes, very good, Sanu. The fourth answer, who will be giving? If some living organisms show similar characteristics, that means they have come from dash origin.
Common origin.
Very good. Common origin. Pratiksha. Right. Very good. Yes, ma'am, I have completed my topic. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. End of the lecture.